Welcome to our discussion on some rather provocative ideas surrounding US trade policy and global geopolitics. We're diving into those sharp critiques by Jeffrey Sachs regarding Trump's tariffs.
I'm excited to get into it. So, the main thrust here is that these tariffs on India and other countries are criticized as being, well, unconstitutional and arguably
Right.
illegal.
Exactly. It's pretty bold. Sachs argues that, Trump's tariffs violate Article 1, Section 8 of the US Constitution. Basically, that it's a breach of the constitutional mandate on trade.
And when he brings up Article 1, Section 8, he's really saying that these tariffs, well, are legally impermissible.
Yes, that's spot on. He emphasizes that trade policy should adhere to legal norms, and by imposing these tariffs, the government, well, it's like ignoring the constitutional blueprint for free trade.
It's kind of fascinating how he mixes legal critique with geopolitical strategy, isn't it? He doesn't just stop at the tariff issue, but also touches on US India relations, right?
Absolutely. Sachs dismantles the notion of a so called US India strategic partnership by pointing out that the US seems more interested in its own protectionist agenda than, well, fostering a true mutually beneficial relationship.
Right. So, it's like he's saying that the protectionist measures are more about domestic politics than actual fair trade. Would that be fair to say?
Exactly, yeah. He's essentially arguing that these tariffs are a deliberate move to serve political interests rather than genuine economic advancement, especially when you consider their potential to disrupt long term diplomatic relationships.
And speaking of domestic politics, Sachs also critiques the influence of the military industrial complex, doesn't he? What did he say about that?
He does. He suggests that the military industrial complex plays a hidden yet significant role behind these trade decisions. It's like it's like the protectionism we see might be partially engineered to support entrenched industrial interests.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, in a way, it's not just economic motives, but also these deeper, more strategic layers at play.
Precisely. And this is where the discussion gets even more interesting. Sachs warns that given this context, India shouldn't just rely on a US centered partnership. Instead, he urges India to push for a multipolar world order.
Right. A multipolar world, meaning that India should diversify its strategic relationships by also engaging more closely with China, Russia, and other BRICS nations, correct?
Yes, exactly. Think of it like it's like building a diversified portfolio. Rather than having your entire wealth in one basket, you're spreading out your investments across several arenas. Only here, it's about geopolitical alliances.
That analogy makes it really clear. But I wonder, wouldn't pushing for stronger ties with China pose some risks given the long standing issues between India and China?
That's a fair and important challenge. Sachs seems to recognize that tension, but his point is more about not putting all eggs in one basket. Rather than being overly dependent on the US, India should cultivate multiple relationships to hedge against
Right.
risks.
So, he's really advocating for a kind of strategic balance in global affairs.
Exactly. Sachs's critique is multifaceted. On one level, he's talking about the legal and economic downsides of these tariffs. On another, he's pushing for a rethinking of international alliances.
Yes, I see that. And how do you think this analysis ties into the broader concept of protectionism itself?
It ties in very clearly. Sachs criticizes protectionism for being economically short sighted. He argues that while tariffs might offer temporary relief for certain industries, they risk long term stability by undermining free trade principles.
That's a compelling argument. It almost sounds like he's saying protectionism is a bit like patching a leaky boat with gum, not a sustainable solution.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, a temporary fix that could sink you in the long run. And this approach can in turn provoke retaliation, which then destabilizes international markets.
Absolutely. I can imagine that such pointed criticisms would ruffle some feathers in political circles, especially among those who champion protectionist policies.
Certainly, calling tariffs unconstitutional is, well, a loaded statement. It challenges not just the economic rationale, but also the legal legitimacy behind such measures, making it a very tough pill for proponents to swallow.
And it raises questions about the true motivations behind these tariffs, whether they serve national security or merely political posturing.
Precisely. Sachs posits that the decision making here is more about domestic political gains and supporting vested interests like the military industrial sectors, rather than promoting genuine economic progress.
Right, exactly. That certainly reframes the conversation. Instead of viewing tariffs as defensive measures, they might be better seen as strategic, albeit flawed, moves within a complex game of geopolitics.
Exactly. And when you look at it that way, it's evident that the implications extend far beyond just economics. We're talking about the future trajectory of global alliances and trade norms.
And this in turn suggests that the stakes are incredibly high for both domestic policy and international relations.
Absolutely. Sachs is essentially warning that continuing down this path could isolate the US and force nations like India to look elsewhere for strategic support. It's a classic case of short term gains leading to long term disadvantages.
Right on. That's a crucial takeaway. In the end, it seems like the argument is for a more diversified, multipolar approach that could foster more genuine, balanced global relationships.
Yes, exactly. It's a call for a shift away from a US dominated narrative towards a more collaborative international framework. And yeah, that's something that invites a lot of debate and rethinking in policy circles.
I must say, though, while his arguments are well founded, do you think there's a risk of oversimplifying the challenges that come with abandoning a US centric approach?
That's a great, respectful challenge. I do think there's a danger in idealizing the multipolar world concept. Real world geopolitics are, well, messy. However, Sachs isn't exactly naive about those complexities. He's urging policymakers to at least consider that diversifying alliances might mitigate some of the long term risk factors inherent in a one size fits all
Absolutely,
strategy.
that nuance is key. It sounds like a call for both introspection and strategic recalibration. The idea is not to abandon alliances altogether, but to reframe and strengthen them in the context of a shifting global order.
Precisely. And by doing so, countries can better navigate the intricate interplay of domestic political interests, legal mandates, and global economic realities.
Yeah, that's really thought provoking. In all, it's a compelling case for rethinking how trade policies are structured, moving away from protectionist measures that might seem attractive short term, but could be detrimental in the long run.
Exactly, and that's the kernel of Sachs's argument. It challenges the status quo and pushes us to consider a future where international policy is, well, more balanced and legally consistent with foundational principles.
Well, this conversation has certainly opened my eyes to the broader implications of these tariffs and the importance of a diversified global strategy.
Indeed, and as we see, these discussions encourage us to think critically about economic policies in the context of international relations. It's all interconnected: trade, law, domestic politics, and global strategy.
Absolutely. Thanks for this enlightening exchange. It's amazing how a single set of policies can ripple out into so many areas of global influence.
Definitely, and it's a reminder that as global citizens, we benefit from understanding these intricate dynamics. It's all about, seeking long-term stability over short-term
Right,
fixes.
exactly. Well, I'm looking forward to following how these debates evolve and hopefully seeing more robust, multipolar strategies emerge on the global stage.
For sure. Thanks for an engaging discussion today. Here's to more thoughtful and dynamic conversations moving forward.